Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Councillor.
How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
How is the voice to you?
Sorry?
Is the voice, can you hear me well or need
Yep.
Yeah?
Hear you 5 by 5.
All right. And why I can't get my picture going? You can't see me there, can you?
Not yet.
I don't know why. Just give me a second. Oh, here we are.
There you
All
are.
right. Is that better?
Yep.
See, I'm sure you must been here with me because I brought some breakfast for Caitlin. So
Oh, well.
I'm the IT guy, just to be fair too. So,
Oh, okay.
so we have to. Is it better now? The sound.
Everything's good.
All right. Okay, sir. So in the statement today, we have for both, right? Like the chair statement for this public meeting, consider, and then for the item mentioned below, written committee, whatever.
Yep.
And then we have one for the
One for the Court of Revision.
yeah, the court provision. Are we gonna go for that meeting or we don't know yet?
The Court of Revision?
Yeah.
As far as I know, it's still on. I haven't heard any differently.
Okay. And who's from Dave Ryan will be joining us, Mark?
Yeah, Dave will be joining.
Okay, so I'm just
And there's the statement just after we adjourn AIRAC, then you end up reading the statement for the Court of Revision.
and we'll keep everybody unless somebody have to leave, right? We've been through this before. Somebody doesn't want to be, as long as we have quorum, right? As long as we have court for the court provision, or
Yeah, for the Court of Revision, all you need is the three AIRAC members.
okay. Okay.
But
No, but if the rest they want to, but I mean everything else should be straightforward, isn't it?
yep,
Do we have any public speaker?
there's no delegations other than the one speaking at the very beginning there, Deb Napton.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll do the consent agenda first, and then we'll go back to her first.
Okay.
Is that what you prefer, or do the Emily project first and then go through the consent after?
No, it's probably good to go through the consent agenda and then go back to
Okay.
to the presentation.
I don't see anything is gonna get, unless I'm mistaken, but there's nothing really, because it's mostly surplus, like surplus slots and whatever. So
Yeah, they do have. There is a presentation if you want it for the item number 3, which is the briefing on planning and development charges.
yeah.
Bill 197 there. So there is they've prepared a PowerPoint if you want it.
Well, we did ask because they said at the time they might not have enough information. Remember, Steve Willis sent us a memo. So do they have more info now, or to your knowledge, or you
Whether
don't
it's more info, I don't know. It's Garrett Schramm that's going to be giving the PowerPoint. So it's legal that's giving the PowerPoint.
Okay.
But I'm
So
not sure if anything is new on it or not.
but it's not a very long presentation, right? Or you
No,
don't
I don't
know
think
yet?
so. No.
Okay. Well, we'll ask the committee member if they want to have. I think it would be helpful to have a presentation, to be honest with you, because it was a moving target, and on a planning committee, which is I attend, they didn't have a lot of information at the time. So
Right.
that's why Steve Willis, if you remember, he pulled that the last time.
Well, Adam is there. I'm not sure if Adam knows if there's more info to share or not. I'm not sure.
Is Adam on the call right now?
Yeah,
Hi
he's
everyone,
there.
just letting you know the stream is live.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Brown.
Good morning. Sorry, I just heard my name, but I'll be honest, I wasn't really paying attention to the conversation. I heard something about a presentation.
It's okay, Mr. Brown. We're used to you not paying attention.
That's not very
Now,
nice, Councillor.
the question, and I know we are been streaming live, I heard, but item 3, which is Bill 197, I know we have legal available if we want a presentation. But if you remember in the planning meeting, they didn't have enough information. So they must have more information now than they did before. Am I correct or am I wrong?
I'm honestly not sure, Mr. Chair. I don't know if that's,
Okay.
I don't know much about that file at all. That was something that was being led, I believe, by legal and by policy. So
Okay.
not something that I was
All right.
directly
We'll wait till we have Garrett on the call and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Thanks, Adam.
Very good.
Morning, Mark.
Morning, Councillor. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. No last minute technical motions or anything today?
Not yet.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning. Hi, George. Hi, Caroline.
Morning, everyone.
Hi, Eli.
Mark, I don't have the agenda in front of me because I couldn't print it, my machine. The item on Bill 197, what number is that on the agenda?
It's
Item
number 3.
Number 3? Okay.
Yep.
Is Steve Willis going to be available to talk about that?
I believe it's Garrett Schramm that's doing the presentation on that.
Okay, thanks.
Just confirming, Councillor, I'll be presenting on that.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll start our meeting in 2 minutes, Mark.
Yeah, anytime, Councillor. 2 minutes.
Okay. We should always read that right the first page. Just so people know, right? Good morning, colleagues, our staff. I'd like to call our meeting to order. Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, Agenda 17, Thursday, October 1st, 2020. This meeting will be held through electronic participation in accordance with Section 238 of Municipal Act 2001, as amended by Bill 197, the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act 2020. This meeting may be viewed online on the Ottawa City Council YouTube channel. The City of Ottawa continues to take COVID-19 seriously and in follow the advice of provincial and federal governments is making significant changes to the service and programming to help protect health and well-being of the community. City Hall is temporarily closed. To help stop the spread of COVID-19, in-person committee and council meeting have been canceled. Such meetings as warranted will be held electronically under further notice. For more information about service disruption, please visit our COVID-19 webpage. Person wishing to provide comment on any of the items contained here should refer to the process detailed and attached to this agenda as Annex A. So we'll go first, colleague, with the consent agenda, and then we'll have our delegation first. So on a consent, declaration of interest. I see none. Confirmation of minutes 16 minute meetings of September 3rd, 2020 of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. On the minutes?
Carried.
Carried.
Item number 1 was postponed and deferred. So item number 1 is the engineer's report, branch number 4, Wilson Johnson Municipal Drain. That the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend that council adopt the engineer's report prepared by Robinson.
Councillor,
Yes. Did
I
somebody?
got a bad connection.
That's okay, Dave. Ryan, we just reading item number 1. So if we have any question, we'll come to you.
That's item number 2, Councillor, just to let you know.
Oh, yes, because the item. Yes, you're right, Mark, because item number 1 is the Emily project, which was added on after. Okay. So we'll follow, yeah. So the engineers report that Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee recommend that council adopt the engineers report prepared by Robinson Consultants, Inc., entitled Engineers Report, branch number 4, Wilson Johnson Municipal Drain, dated February 2020, and give first and second reading to the bylaw attached as document 2 to this report in accordance with section 42 and 45 of the Drainage Act of Ontario. Do we have any question? Anyone speaking on this item, Mark? We have no one signed to speak, correct?
No speakers.
No speaker on the item?
Carried.
Okay. Thank you very much. Item number 3 is briefing on planning and development charge aspect of Bill 197, COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act 2020, and that's the item Councillor was asking about. Does the committee wish to have a presentation? Because on the planning committee, I sat down with the 3 of my colleagues, Scott and Glenn. We didn't have enough information to have a presentation at the time, but now it seems our legal willing to do a presentation on this. So should we hold this item for presentation? I see nodding head. Okay, so we'll hold item number 3 and we'll come back to it after. Thank you. Changes to the definition of a minor rezoning application type. The Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve 1 amendment to the definition of minor rezoning application as set out in bylaw 2015-96 respecting fees for planning application as detailed in document number 1. On the item?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you. Zoning bylaw amendment, part of 2974 Shea Road. The Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for part of 2974 Shea Road for the purpose of rezoning a portion of the lands from agriculture AG to agriculture subzone 5 AG5 to prohibit residential use on the retained farmland as detailed in document 2. And item number 2, the Agricultural Affairs Committee approved the consultation details section of this report be included as part of the brief explanation. This is another surplus farmland on the item.
Carried.
Carried.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Another similar item is the zoning bylaw amendment part of 4960 Cannon Smith Drive. Item number 1, that Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for part of 4960 Cannon Smith Drive for the purpose of rezoning a portion of the land from agriculture AG to agriculture subzone 4 AG4 to prohibit residential uses on the retained farmland as detailed in document 2. And item number 2, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation details section of this report be included as part of the brief explanation. On the item,
Carried.
Carried.
item number 6, zoning bylaw amendment part of 3964 John Shaw Road in West Carlton. Item number 1, that the Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for part of 3964 John Shaw Road for the purpose of rezoning the lands from agriculture zone AG to agriculture zone subzone 5 AG5 to prohibit residential uses on the retained farmland as detailed in document 2. And item number 2, that Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation details section of this report be included as part of the brief explanation. On the item,
Carried.
okay. Okay. Item number 8, economic development on long-range planning. City of Ottawa zoning bylaw 2008-250 omnibus amendment Q3 2020. The Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 as shown in document 1 and detailed in document 3 and 4. That's an omnibus amendment. Can we carry this?
Carried.
I just have one question for
For maybe Don Herwire on the call. Don, are you on the call?
Don or Mitchell too, Mitchell Lestage.
Okay, go ahead, ask question.
Sure. It's just obviously there's a number of things in here, some stuff for Fallowfield Road and Mansfield Road. There's one other thing, and I could ask elsewhere, but I'm going to ask here.
Certainly.
It's with regard to the Lear that we did a few years ago and some changes along Mansfield Road in Bleaks, 2016, 4 years later, those changes still haven't occurred. Would I expect them to happen through this process? Because waiting a couple more years for the OP is quite lengthy, and it's obviously impacting those properties now that they don't have consistent zoning to the OP designation.
So just to clarify your question, Councillor, you said waiting for the OP. Did you mean waiting for the new comprehensive zoning bylaw versus
That's just it, right? So they are already in the OP. So you're right. It would be the comprehensive zoning bylaw. So that could be 2, 3, 4 years away. And we've already been waiting 4 years from the council decision on zoning as it stands, which impacts for severances and stuff like that.
Sure. Mitchell, I'm not sure if you're aware of this one. If not, we can look into that and get back to you on possible timing.
I think that would be a good idea.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
So can we carry the item and staff can provide us with more explanation? Okay.
Great.
On the item, okay, thank you very much. Item number 9, zoning bylaw amendment to permit reduced parking rate for the large-scale warehouse and industrial building. And that's a citywide that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend that council, 1, approve an amendment to section 101 of zoning bylaw 2008-250 for warehouse, light industrial, heavy industrial, and technology industry minimum parking rate as detailed in document 1. Item number 2, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation detail section of this report be included as part of the brief explanation. On item number 9,
Carried.
Carried.
okay, thank
Sure.
you. Item number 10, that's amendment to the engineer's report, John Taylor, municipal drain, realignment and modification. In Rio Goober, that the Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee recommend that Council adopt the engineer's report prepared by Robinson Consultants, Inc., entitled Engineer's Report, John Taylor, Municipal Drain, Realignment and Modification, dated August 2020, and give first and second reading to the bylaw attached as document 2 to this report in accordance with section 42 and 45 of the Drainage Act of Ontario. On the item?
Carried.
Carried.
Thank you very much. And now we will go to our first. I think, Mr. Clerk, I don't think I read the chair's statement for the public hearing for OP and zoning item. So maybe I should read it now.
Oh, sorry, I thought you had read it, but yeah,
No,
please.
I read the Zoom meeting, unfortunately. Sorry, folks. Chair statement, republic hearing for OP and zoning item. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendment listed as item 4 to 9 on today's agenda. For the item just mentioned, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the local planning appeal tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the local planning appeal tribunal if council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of recipient of the application for zoning and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comment on these amendments prior to their consideration by the City Council on October 14, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. So that's the chair's statement. So we do have a public delegation to do a presentation on Emily project. I received this request from the OFA in my area, and they do have a power presentation. And I'd like to, Deb, before you do your presentation, give the committee small or little information on Emily project. And this has been done right across the province, but it might be something new to us. So if you can spend a couple of minutes, tell us about the Emily project, and then we'll go to your presentation. So with that, we have Deb Napton. She'll be doing the presentation on behalf of the OFA. Deb, we'll turn it to you.
Hi, Eli. Thanks very much. It's nice to see everybody. I think the PowerPoint actually will explain the project pretty well as we go along. So if we want to just jump right into that, I think that would be good. Okay, so next slide, please. So the Emily project was initiated in 2017 by the family of Emily Trudeau. Emily was critically injured in a farm accident at a second farm. No buildings and no 911 sign on the property. Her family called 911, but the first responders couldn't find the field and actually drove by it that day. And Emily subsequently passed away from her injuries. Next slide. So this is the Trudeau family. They felt they needed to do something to prevent this from happening again to another farm family. So they initiated this project and put together a committee in Hastings County. And the project officially launched in 2017 at the Hastings County Plowing Match. Next slide. So although the most recognizable part of the project is the 911 signs, the project has been a big picture project from the outset. and it's focused on improving emergency services in rural communities. So the mission statement, to bring ideas, resources, and community partners together to improve emergency services. And the ultimate goal is that all rural properties have 911 signs, whether it's a home farm, whether there are buildings, whether there are services to the property. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the objectives are focused on more than just the 911 signs. The program works with municipalities to make the signs available while providing a simple and unified system for ordering through the website. They also provide access to municipalities for order forms that are already in use, challenges that other municipalities have encountered, so that every time it is offered in a municipality, it gets a little bit easier. It works with community partners to help fund the sign purchases where possible. Sometimes farm equipment dealerships, insurance companies, organizations, farm organizations within the community see the value in the project, and they're quite willing to contribute some money to it. I know both our Empire Region Federation of Agriculture and Ottawa Federation of Agriculture are interested in committing some money to start the project off, offering it to members. For the first 100 members that want to sign up for signs, they're going to offer an amount of money to discount the signs to the members. And it also works to promote the program to landowners while helping them understand how to contact emergency services efficiently. So whether that's teaching farmers to have a phone charger in every tractor, or go through an emergency plan with a new employee, just so that when you're put in an emergency situation, people know what to do and how to do it quickly. Next slide. As I mentioned, the official launch was August 23rd, 2017. Next slide. This is the Farm 911 website. So it's available to all municipalities to use as a centralized spot for ordering signs, gathering information, learning more about the project. So any municipality, once they decide to go ahead, if a farmer is looking for it, they search Farm 911, the Emily Project. They come here, and every municipality that has decided to participate in the program, their orders are taken off this website. Next slide, sorry. So there's a variety of templates available to use when launching or promoting the project. There's postcards, there's brochures, there's posters. Everything's already done up. It's just a case of printing it off and distributing it. Next slide. There's 15 municipalities currently participating. I believe it's 9 counties and 6 individual municipalities across the province. It has gained a lot of momentum in the last year. COVID has certainly slowed it down a bit as people kind of regroup, but we're starting to see really good uptake across the province. Next slide. And that's my presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to hear it today.
Well, thank you very much, Deb, for your presentation. And if I can say thank you to also our members of the OFA in Ottawa and prior who reached out to us about the Emily project. And we did a little bit of work with our staff, Deb, and I believe our municipal addressing team with the building code service can assign civic address for property which do not currently have one. They have generic email addresses, and it's addressing, and we can provide all this to you. I reached out to Richard Ash from, and we got a pricing on those sign at the 911 blade sign and post install. If it's installed by the city, is $94. 911 replacement blade sign and post still $94, and that's installed by the city. Replacement blade and post installed by the owner or / developer is $57, and 911 replacement blade sign only is $32. So and there's no additional cost. We can email you all that information we have. You can share it with your member, and now we'll open it to my colleague if any question about or from Deb or more explanation on Emily's project. It was quite a bit on Roma organization, rural municipality of Ontario. They spoke about this and the need for farmer to basically to install those 911 sign. I know the city of Ottawa, they have GPS technology on a fire truck and can identify property even if they don't have the plate on it. But I'm not sure if every municipality or small rural municipality in Ontario have that technology. But also, it's helpful for anyone to have those plate signs on their farm gate, especially now the farm are hundreds, if it's not thousands of acres. So anyway, we'll open the question to my colleague. I didn't see any hand raised, but is anyone, oh, sorry. Councillor Moffat, I think you had your hand first. I'm not sure, I just checked. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks for this. And thanks, Deb, for bringing this. I know that you actually reached out to us last year about this in 2019. And I had spoken previously, I think, probably some Twitter exchanges with Janine Fraser, who used to live in Fallowfield, now lives, I believe, over in Southern Ontario. So we had talked about this before, and I actually reached out to Tony DeMonte to get a sense of that from a paramedic perspective, from a response time perspective. And I oddly, I have the email, but I somehow didn't share it. So I will. It was just a comment to build on kind of what Eli was saying, that different municipalities do have different different factors when it comes to this. I mean, I actually think this is a good program, and I would have no opposition to anyone wanting to do this, but just from the effectiveness, the necessity of it in Ottawa. So it just sort of says, common cell providers always advise us of which cell tower received the call. The call is most often triangulated off multiple cell towers, and it gives them a degree of accuracy to that location. In some cases, it states within 3 meters of that location. Other times, it might state 2,000 meters of that location. The larger variance is often attributed to taller apartment buildings or nearby hills. If we can't locate a caller, we can request in most cases that they look at their satellite fix on a mapping tool on the caller's cell phone, which is often very accurate. So the opinion of, and this was Andrew Orchard, who is the program manager with Paramedic Services, his opinion is that the suggested feature would be very rarely used, as we have not experienced trouble locating callers within the Ottawa boundaries. I see this having more value in more remote areas where there is only one cell tower and no ability to triangulate a caller. We've had numerous past successes finding people lost in wooded areas and skidoo trails of the city using the current technology. So it's obviously it's important to know that we at the city do have, our staff do feel a high level of confidence with locating individuals. That said, I think there's always value in it from even just a resident perspective when you're making a call to be able to give that nearest address. We just had one a couple weeks ago, a farm accident, and the sharing of the nearest address actually led to confusion in the community. They thought it was another property that had already experienced quite a significant tragedy from a farming accident a few years ago, just by that misrepresentation of the address. So there are certainly benefits. I know, at least in Ottawa's case, we haven't had issues when it comes to locating folks based on the lack of address signs. But again, no opposition in my mind of actually offering those signs to make sure if people want those, that they can put those up.
Right. Interesting. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll flip it to you.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. Councillor DeRose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to you, and thank you very much, Deb, for your great presentation. And I know that this is very important initiative. I know myself and Councillor Shantiri, in the last term, we worked very closely with the City of Ottawa, specifically in Osgood Ward, because back in amalgamation, back in the ice storm, the province gave money for farmer, because after this incident, we had a lots of deficiency and 911 calls that people and volunteer could not be able to reach the proper farm because of not proper efficiency 911 blade sign. At that time, Rideau Colburn and West Carlton and the Gloucester area, they actually replaced their signs with aluminum 911 blade. And Osgood at that time, unfortunately, they used the metal one. And what happened is, with the snow clearing and the wing, when the snowplow goes by, the combo trucks, salt was hitting those 911 and they were all rusty. So we were able, with the help of my colleague on ERAC last term, we were able to allocate some funds, and we changed all the 911 blades, and they were free. We distribute them to every major road in Osgood Wards to be able to follow the lead of Rideau Corbin and West Carleton at that time with aluminum signs. So I want to thank you. This is a very important initiative, and I support the chair on anything that we need to help with this initiative, because it's great and it's safe for the community. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor DeRose. So Deb, you heard our support for this. I just want to add a little bit to what Councilor Moffat was saying. And sometimes, Councilor, the cell phone itself is not good enough, because if they are the nearest tower, and it happened a couple of accidents on the Ottawa River, and when the caller called, the call got picked up by Gatineau, and we have some challenge with the language barrier to explain the accident. So again, if it's a small cost to the farmer, quite honestly, to provide that extra safety feature, to speak, and for all the investment our farmers doing, trust me, this will be one of the smallest investment in the plate, and the city is willing to help and work out with you, Deb. So we'll send you all the information and the address in ottawa.ca, and so you can provide it to all your members, and if they wish to follow through, we'll give you a list of the cost as well. So with that, can we receive Deb's presentation for the record? Well, thank you very much, Deb. Really appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. So now, colleague will go to a health item, which is a briefing on planning and development charges aspect of Bill 197. And Garrett, I know some of us, the vice chair and Councillor Moffat, myself, on the planning committee, but I think I'd like to start from the beginning, because some of my colleagues do not sit on planning committee. So if you can take us back to the beginning of this bill, will be great.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. There's been a great deal of legislation that's come out of the province in the last year or year and a half. So wouldn't blame anyone for not needing a refresher. I have a presentation, if it looks like that's being brought up right now. Perfect, thank you very much. So as you were saying, Mr. Chair, the presentation today is on Bill 197, which is the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act. And next slide, please. This act was enacted on July 21, 2020, and the relevant provisions actually came into force on September 18, 2020. Very recently. This report came before ARAC and Planning Committee earlier. However, at the time it went to Planning Committee, the regulations weren't out. It was before September 18th, so the provisions also weren't in force. So this presentation has been updated to ensure that it has the latest information, including the information from the regulations. So to the extent that there's anything new in this, it won't be reflected in the report that was previously issued. It will be reflected in this presentation. Next slide, please. As I said, there has been a lot of legislation coming out of the province lately having to do with development and planning matters. So just as a refresher, Bill 108 was enacted on June 6, 2019. That legislation made some pretty sweeping changes to the Planning Act and Development Charges Act. And many of those provisions did not immediately come into effect. So most notably, Bill 108 dealt with repealing Section 37 bonusing and replacing it with a community benefits charge, which is similar to a development charge. We'll get into that more later. And it also had some provisions dealing with parkland. So that later on June 21st, 2019, regulations came out related to Bill 108. December 10, 2019, some Bill 138 came out, and that was making some tweaks to the Bill 108 proposal. Still, those provisions in Bill 108 were not in effect. After the COVID emergency developed in early 2020, the province revisited the Bill 108 proposal and came out with Bill 197 in July of 2020. This basically reversed some of the changes in Bill 108 and kept some, and that's what we'll be addressing today. And on September 18, all of the Bill 108 and Bill 197 provisions that are relevant to us today from a planning and development perspective came into effect. So that's the timeline of what we've been dealing with. I'll go into more detail about each of the changes in Bill 108, Bill 108 and Bill 197 as we go through. So next slide, please. The first major change was to do with Section 37 height and density bonusing. You'll recall that Section 37 of the Planning Act allows the municipality to require contributions of facilities or services in exchange for an additional permitted height or density. That's what Section 37 did permit. That has been now repealed under the proposal under Bill 108 and then as amended by Bill 197. Section 37 bylaws will remain in force for a period of time until either we enact a community benefits charge bylaw or a specified date. Actually, the Section 37 bylaw will continue after that specified date. We just can no longer enact a new Section 37 bylaw. So the municipality will have to, the city will have to consider how it will deal with the Section 37 height and density bonusing versus enacting a new community benefits charge bylaw. I'll get into more specifics about the community benefits charge bylaw and its utility in a minute. Once the Section 37 bylaw does expire, any reserve funds will be transferred into the general capital reserve, but it will still be dedicated to the same purpose for which it was dedicated, which is a community benefit. Next slide, please. Community benefits charges. So this is the new provision that came into effect. It was first proposed under Bill 108. Bill 197 substantially changed what a community benefits charge can be applied to. Community benefits charges are now much more limited. They can only apply to high density residential development. So that is defined as a residential development consisting of 10 or more residential units and 5 or more stories. It has to have both. So that is a much more narrow range of development that a community benefits charge can be applied to. What a community benefits charge can be in respect to is fairly broadly stated. It can be applied to any capital costs related to development in the area to which the community benefits charge applies. It's a similar definition to what a development charge could be applied for previously. And it's not limited. There's no specific types of services that can't be collected through community benefits charges. They do have to, however, be tied to a development in the community benefits charge area. And that question of whether it's tied to development should be justified through the community benefits charge strategy, which is similar to a development charge background study, which essentially is the justification for how the city is calculating what charges should be applied. It has fewer specific requirements than the Development Charges Act. So the Development Charges Act has very specific regulations about what goes into a background study and how the various inputs are calculated. The community benefits charge bylaw, we have the regulation now. It doesn't provide quite as much detail as the development charges bylaw background study provisions do. We still have to articulate what growth we're anticipating and what level of service we want to provide and what additional services we're going to try to collect through a community benefits charge and justify how much of that is attributable to existing versus new development. But we don't have as much detail in terms of how to implement that. So we might have more flexibility under those regulations, but it remains to be seen. Next slide, please. So development charges. The amendments also came into force in September 2020. The Development Charges Act has been changed. Under the old Development Charges Act, the services which were eligible to be collected through development charges were not specifically listed. There was a list of things that were exempt from being collected through development charges. The approach changed with Bill 108 and it continues under Bill 197. It now lists a list of services that are eligible. If we go to the next slide, I've copied those services into the slide. So this is a bit of a wall of text, but this is a list of all the services which are eligible to be collected under Bill 197 as a development charge. The services that are in bold on this slide would not have been recoverable as development charges under Bill 108 as it was originally drafted. So you can see that Bill 197 expanded the list quite a bit from what was proposed previously under Bill 108. So that's good for us. The regulations that were proposed later on in the process added some of these items to the list. So over time, as the list developed, it got closer to the Bill 197 list, but the Bill 197 list ultimately is bigger than what was under 108. The other thing to keep in mind, and this also applied to Bill 108 as well, that the bolded services were those that used to be under the Development Charges Act, services which were termed soft services, those which would have been subject to a reduction in the process of calculating the charge. So soft services had a 10% reduction off the top that we couldn't charge for. That 10% reduction no longer exists under the Act. So we can charge for 100% of soft services such as childcare, housing, parks, and recreation. Another point to note too is that the regulations clarified that we can't, as it says in the list, we can't charge for the acquisition of land for parks, but we can charge for the acquisition of land for recreation services. So community centers, rec centers, that kind of thing. We can collect development charges for paying for acquisition of land for a rec center. Otherwise, the regulations didn't change much in terms of this list. Next slide. The development charges enacted under the legislation as it existed prior to September 18, those bylaws will remain in force for 2 years until September 18, 2022, or until council decides to elect to enact a community benefits charge bylaw, whichever is sooner. And so after that 2-year period, any development charges which are no longer legal in accordance with the new Bill 197 list would not be enforceable, but it doesn't appear based on my initial review that there are any specific development charges that Ottawa is collecting now that wouldn't be permissible under the new list. So it probably won't affect us, but it's something that staff should take a look at before the 2-year period is up. The next slide, please. Finally, well, there's two more main points. First, parkland dedication. This is significant. Bill 108 had initially proposed to repeal the parkland dedication power of the municipality. Bill 197 reverses Bill 108. We continue to be able to have a parkland dedication bylaw. The one catch is that the current Act, and as amended as well, continues to allow us to collect an alternative rate. An alternative rate in the Act is calculated on the basis of, it basically applies to high density residential, and we would apply a rate of 1 hectare per 300 units for dedication of parkland. And there's a different rate for cash in lieu as well. That is an alternative to the easier way of calculating it, which is based on a percentage of land, 5% of land for residential. Our bylaw does have this alternative rate provision. For municipalities that have chosen to enact an alternative rate provision, we have to, our bylaws are going to expire on September 18, 2022. If we want to continue to use that alternative rate provision. We'll have to reenact our parkland dedication bylaw before then if we want to continue to do that. And that also will open our bylaw up to an appeal. The appeal would be limited to argument about the appropriateness of the alternative rate. And it would be open for any affected person in the municipality to appeal. So this basically is a mechanism that allowed our bylaw to come open to appeal, even though it's been enacted for a long time. And our deadline for that is, again, September 18, 2022. Next slide, please. Finally, the minister has power under Section 47 of the Act to issue orders. Under the old Act, the minister could issue orders with respect to zoning or subdivision approvals. The Bill 197 permitted the minister also the power to issue orders with respect to site plan approval. Under the new provision, the minister can effectively exempt a property from municipal approval of site plan and direct that site plan be approved by the minister on terms dictated by the minister. The municipality still would enter into the agreement, the site plan agreement, but the minister's conditions would have to be in the agreement. This hasn't been used in Ottawa very frequently, if at all, to my knowledge. I do know that the minister's orders have been issued more frequently in the Greater Toronto area. So it's unclear whether this will be something that we'll be seeing more in Ottawa, or if it's mostly going to be relevant to the GTA. So that is my presentation. Obviously a lot going on with the legislation right now, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have that arise from this, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Gav, for your presentation. I don't see any hands. Maybe my colleague will raise their hand now. Question for you. When you talk about minister can make that decision, so is the minister's decision, can that be appealed, or that's not appealable?
That decision would not be appealable. It would be the minister would effectively issue an order that would be a regulation to the Planning Act. We've seen in the last year, there have been about, I'd say about a dozen or so of those orders in the GTA area, like Hamilton, Toronto, I think some appeal. So haven't seen any in Ottawa yet.
But basically it's not appealable, what you're saying.
My recollection, no, I could double check that, but it doesn't seem to be appealable. Okay.
So Councillor Meehan have a question. Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is really quite involved, isn't it? I guess the first question I'd just like an explainer on is, how do you envision the changes to the DC law in terms of the percentage of parkland? Right now, it is based on a percentage of the density. Now it's going to be quite specific. 1 hectare per 100 units, if I understand that correctly. Many of the plans that we don't really, how can we actually determine how this is going to affect us? I guess in essence, will we see smaller parks in the future, or will this actually have a benefit? A higher density will require greater parkland.
So thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Chair, I don't anticipate this will change our ability to collect parkland. Our current bylaw remains in force, to be clear, for at least the next 2 years. We currently, under our current bylaw, have this alternative rate, which I've been referring to it as. We have one rate for residential development that is just based on a percentage of the land, or if they're doing cash in lieu, it's the value of that land. My recollection is it's 5%. And then we have an alternative rate, which currently applies, that is based, it's for higher density residential development. So we're building a condo or a apartment tower, that kind of thing. That rate will apply currently on, it's 1 hectare per 300 units.
300 units.
Correct, yes. And then there's a separate rate that also applies. It's a slightly different rate that applies when you're doing cash in lieu versus dedication. That 1 per 300 is for dedication of the land itself on the property for a park. When you're doing cash in lieu of dedicating land, it's 1 per 500 units.
So could this actually have an impact on what a developer wants to put on a site?
It currently isn't enforced that rate already, so I don't.
Future-wise, though, how do we envision it going forward? Because we are trying to increase density, certainly, you know, around the transit lines and things like that.
So I think there is the rate isn't anticipated to change unless we get some other direction from council. What the change in the legislation does is allow a developer to appeal our rate at some point when we reenact it in the next 2 years. So we might see a legal challenge to the rate that we're charging. The rate that we're charging is the exact one that is permitted under the legislation. So I'm not sure what grounds they would have to really appeal, to be honest. But we could see a legal cost associated with fighting those appeals. In terms of how it will change incentives for developers, I'm not aware of any suggestion that we're going to change our rate. And so it should continue to be the same rate, which is what developers are aware of and building in accordance with now.
But the intent of these changes really is to allow developers to speed up and take some of the barriers to housing development away. So overall, would you say that this is good for us, or would you say that you know, this will be a little bit more problematic in the way that we development is allowed?
Yeah, I would definitely agree that the province has stated that the intent of the legislation that we've been talking about is to reduce barriers to housing development. I think the changes we're seeing in Bill 197 overall are favorable to the municipality. They kind of take into account some of the comments that the province had received to Bill 108, which we had comments from council and staff as well on those. And so I think it does take into account some of those changes. It gives us the flexibility we need under development charges, for instance, to continue to collect what we're collecting. And the community benefits charge has been reduced in importance, which honestly is makes sense from the way.
And so it would certainly then make sense for us to tackle the community benefits bylaw and get that in place before the time runs out and they decide to do it for us, I suppose.
So there's not a suggestion that the minister could enact a community benefits charge for us. We do have, when we enact the community benefits charge bylaw, our authority to collect our Section 37 bonusing goes away. We have to do, it's one or the other. So we'll have to do an assessment, and I don't think staff has been able to do an assessment as to whether it's more beneficial to keep our Section 37 bonusing versus charging this community benefits charge, which can only apply to that high density residential development.
Okay, that's it for me. Thanks, Garrett. Okay,
thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Meehan. Any other question? I don't see any hand raising. Oh, Councillor Moffat. Go ahead, Councillor Moffat.
Thanks. Just briefly, I think Garrett sort of summed it up. There are certain bills that come out of the province, regardless of which government it is. I think of Bill 181, with some election changes back in 2016, but certainly Bill 108 was confounding from a municipal governance perspective and saying, well, did anyone even consult municipalities on a bill like this? It was the same with Bill 181. It's almost as though the people who write these bills don't actually know anything about the 444 municipalities in the province of Ontario. So I think Bill 197 helps to correct, regardless of COVID, this needed to happen. If they want to use COVID as a cover for amending Bill 108, then so be it. I'm fine with it. But those changes needed to happen because they were detrimental to the operation of a municipality. So thanks for this. Thanks for the update.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. I see no other hand. Thank you very much, Gary, for your presentation. Don, I saw you earlier. Do you have something you want to add to what Garrett was saying, Don Herwire, or you're good?
No, I think Garrett and Councillor Moffat have captured it. The excuse me, the changes made in terms of the parkland dedication were something the municipality was seeking. And just want to say that we will be moving to a new bylaw. So look for that in the next 2 years. And
question, Garrett, to you or Don, is September 22nd, 2022, is that date can be advanced? Because as you know, that year with the big E in it, so.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I know it's on our work plan for 2021, so I would expect we would be delivering that in advance of that time frame.
Okay, all right, that's good to hear. Thank you very much. Mr. Coordinator, Mark, do we need to receive this presentation? We don't have to carry, just receive it, correct?
Yeah, I think it's just receive on this specific item.
Okay, so can we receive the item 3? No, thank you very much, folks. Thank you, and thank you again, Garrett, for your presentation. That will conclude our held item. We have no one to speak. Inquiries? Any inquiries? Other business? For some of my colleagues, we will be adjourning from ERAC momentarily, but we will reconvene under the Court of Revision. I'm not sure if all my colleagues like to stay, but they're welcome to stay. But we need at least 3 of us to be on the next item. So with that, the next meeting is Thursday, November the 5th. Now I need a motion to adjourn from ERAC. So
Motion
move.
to adjourn.
Thank you very much, folks. And please, we need a minimum 3 of us to stay, and myself and 2 other councillors for the next item. Court of Revision amendment to the engineering report for the Ringenball Municipal Drain dated February 2020. There's a statement to be read here by the chair of the Court of Revision at the beginning of the hearing on October 1st, 2020 for the Ringenball Municipal Drain. For the purpose of hearing appeals under Section 52 of the Drainage Act by owners of land assessed for drainage works under the engineer's report for the Ringenball Municipal Drain entitled Court of Revision Amendment to the engineer's report for the Ringenball Municipal Drain dated February 2020, this court will now convene for the first sitting of the Court of Revision under Section 46 of Drainage Act. The following appeal has been received by the City Clerk. Dave Ryan is the City of Ottawa drainage engineer. Any owner of land assessed under the engineer's report who has not provided written notice of appeal to the clerk in advance of this hearing should identify themselves to the clerk assistant at this time with a request to be heard. Mr. Desjardins, to my knowledge, you have no one sign up to speak on this item. Am I correct?
No one to speak other than the appeal from Dave Ryan.
Okay, and Dave Ryan is the city drainage superintendent.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. So it's just to correct a minor discrepancy in the roll numbers in the assessment schedule. So one of the the roll numbers was incorrect. It's a means of correcting that in the assessment schedule moving forward.
So and the number for the benefit of my colleague is still, it'll be read in my statement in a redundant of decision. Is that the number we're talking about? Like to do the correct number for the parcel 152 shall be corrected to, is that the one?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so any question from my colleague to Mr. Ryan? No, I see none. So Mark, we have to read the other statement, rendering a decision. Is that correct, Dave, at this point?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so any question from colleague? No? At the conclusion of the hearing of the appeal has been granted to the court has decided that there shall be a change to the assessment schedule as stated in the engineer's report, then the chair may wish to state the following. This court adopted the following update to the assessment schedules in the engineer's report dated February 2020. All reference to the roll number associated with the parcel 152 shall be corrected to 500-301-554000000. The decision rendered by the court may be appealed to the Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Appeal Tribunal within 21 days of today, October 1st, 2020. Sample appeal notice are available from the city drainage superintendent calling 613-580-2424 extension 25008. With that, the court adjourned. At the conclusion of the hearing, if no appeal has been filed or if appeal has been filed, the court has decided there shall be no changes to the assessment as stated in the engineer's report. Then the chair stated the following. This court adopt the assessment in the engineer's report dated February 2020.
You don't have to read the rest, Chair. It was just the first one.
All right. So with that, we are good, Mr. Ryan, because we were told the last time we were going too fast, so I tried to slow down as much as possible. Have we missed anything?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Chair. There's nobody, we've received no appeals and just other than that minor correction. So we should be, this is the Amazon site. Basically, the costs are being paid by them. So it's
by the Amazon.
That's correct.
So with that, again, if someone need a sample of appeal notice, they can call the City of Ottawa number 613-580-2424, extension 25008. With that, the court adjourned. Thank you very much, folks, and have a great long weekend in October. And our next meeting will be November 5th. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
That was a lot shorter than our last quarter revision.
Oh my God. Especially the one in North Gore.
That's the one. That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was a little bit shorter. You didn't even provide us accommodation to sleep over.
I know.